Hello, my name's Carol and I teach on the English language course, and I'm here today to talk to you about using the skill of quotation in your essays. It's important that you know how to use quotations effectively and appropriately, because that skill covers 3 of the 4 assessment objectives for this course. And I've just picked out some of the key points from the assessment objectives that relate to using quotation. In the first assessment objective, it talks about how coherent and accurate your written expression has to be, and obviously that includes accurate use of quotation. In the second assessment objective, it talks about analysis of meaning, and you aren't able to analyse meaning effectively unless you can be very specific about what you're saying. Lastly, knowledge of key constituents of language, which are phonology, grammar, lexis and semantics. You won't be able to demonstrate knowledge of these key constituents unless you can use quotation to show that you know what you're talking about. If we just move over to this board, I want to use the example that you've got on your skill sheet to illustrate some of the things that you can do to make your use of quotation more effective. And remember, when you're using quotation, you are moving your essay from a generalisation to a very specific argument about your opinion of a text. But without those effective quotations, it will remain a generalisation and it will not access any of the higher grades. So if you have a look at the example on the board, I'll read out the first sentence. The tanks are personified, leapt and skipped with joy, with the dynamic verbs suggesting the tank's happiness at serving in the war. So this is a typical beginning of a PEE paragraph. We've made the point about personification, then we've got our example. At GCSE, you may have been used to giving your point using a colon and using a quotation underneath. But at advanced level, it's much more sophisticated if you can use a very short quotation, which is actually embedded within your sentence. I'll carry on reading the example. This personification continues when describing a tank as at rest in its lair, which gives a sense of recuperation via the underlined noun. Now you'll notice here that I've made reference to an underlined noun, but I haven't actually underlined it in the quotation, which is a mistake that a lot of students make. They're aware that they want to draw attention to a specific word in the quotation, but they forget to do that. So what you need to do is actually underline the word that your comment refers to. Similarly, in the top example, we mentioned dynamic verbs as a feature of the quotation, but they haven't been underlined. So help the examiner out so that you know what you're talking about and underline the bit of quotation that relates to that. If you notice, for the point about personification, there are 2 quotations used. The reason for this is that one quotation on its own doesn't really show that you know the text thoroughly and can select appropriate examples. So it's much better to have at least 2 quotations for the point that you are making. The other thing you may notice is the use of ellipsis at the top, the 3 dots. This is how you organise a quotation on the page if that quotation is not the whole sentence or utterance, but is just a selected part of it. And you put the 3 dots before and the 3 dots after to indicate to the examiner you have chosen selectively from a line, and those quotations go, as those dots go inside the quotation marks. So this is a complete PE paragraph. It may be that you compare to another text, so it could be that you go on to talk about text B, but you would do exactly the same thing again, have at least 2 examples and embed them in your writing. What would be a good idea now is if you find an essay where your teacher has suggested that you need to use more quotations, choose a paragraph where you haven't used enough quotation and rewrite it. Then hand it in to your teacher and see that your skill of quotation using has actually improved.